A civil rights organization looked at a municipal budget and found problems the municipality itself cannot seem to see. A municipality that is already under provincial administration, which makes you wonder how they ended up there in the first place. Thank you to every subscriber who supports this channel. It is always appreciated. If you are new here, I'm Riaan Roux, and this is the Riaan Roux Show. AfriForum's Klerksdorp branch submitted a formal 28-page technical analysis to the City of Matlosana in May 2026 as part of the legally required public participation process for the municipality's 2026-27 to 2028-29 medium-term revenue and expenditure framework. That's a mouthful. Now, that is the multi-year budget plan that governs how Matlosana collects money and spends it. Before I get into what AfriForum found, you need to understand where Matlosana stands going into this budget. The City of Matlosana governs Klerksdorp and the surrounding area in the Northwest Province. It is currently under provincial intervention in terms of the Municipal Finance Management Act, which means the Northwest Provincial Government has stepped in because the municipality was not managing its finances properly. Against that backdrop, the 2026-27 budget projects a surplus of 3.95 million rand. AfriForum's submission argues that that number is not real. The first problem that AfriForum identifies is the collection rate assumption built into the budget. When a municipality bills residents for water and electricity, it does not expect to collect every rand that it bills. The portion it does not expect to collect is recorded as debt impairment, which is an expense on the books. The higher your assumed collection rate, the lower your impairment expense, and the better your financial position looks on paper. Matlosana's budget assumes it will collect 70% what it bills. The problem, according to AfriForum's submission, is that the municipality's actual collection rate is approximately 58%. AfriForum ran the numbers. If you apply the real 58% collection rate instead of the assumed 70%, the municipality needs to increase its debt impairment provision by approximately 1.47 billion rand. That 3.95 million rand surplus does not just shrink, it disappears entirely. Poof! Replaced by a deficit nearly 400 times larger. The budget is under provincial oversight specifically because it must be funded, meaning the cash the municipality actually expects to receive must be enough to cover what it plans to spend. AfriForum's submission argues that by using a 70% collection assumption, the municipality is essentially counting 1.47 billion rand in cash that does not exist. If the provincial treasury applied the real collection rate, the budget would be declared unfunded again. The second problem AfriForum identifies is how the budget treats interest income. The budget projects approximately 800.7 million rand in interest earned on outstanding debtor accounts. That is a 19.63% increase from the prior year. On the balance sheet, it looks like income. But here is what it actually is. Under the accounting system that municipalities use, interest is recorded the moment it is charged to a resident's overdue account. The municipality does not need to receive the cash for it to appear as revenue on its books. It is accrued income, not cash. AfriForum's submission makes the point plainly. If a resident cannot afford to pay their water and electricity bill, they are not going to pay the 15 to 18% penalty interest that is charged on top of it. The 800.7 million rand is largely interest charged to people who cannot pay the principal amount. It exists in the accounting records. It does not exist in the bank. The total projected surplus for the year is 3.95 million rand. That surplus depends on the municipality collecting a meaningful portion of that 800.7 million rand. AfriForum argues the probability of that materializing is low. If even a fraction of it does not arrive as cash, the surplus collapses. The third problem is the 200 million rand the budget counts on from electricity disconnections and debt collection drives. To understand why AfriForum challenges this, you need to understand the economic environment Matlosana operates in. According to Statistics South Africa's quarterly labour force survey for the second quarter of 2025, the official unemployment rate in the Northwest Province was 40.1%. If you include people who have stopped looking for work entirely, the expanded unemployment rate was 54.7%. That is the highest expanded unemployment rate of any province in the country. The Northwest rate has been improving. It was 41.3% on the official measure a year earlier, so the direction of travel is positive. But even with that improvement, more than half of the working age population in the province is either unemployed or has given up looking. And Matlosana's collection rate has stayed at approximately 58% despite these employment gains, which tells you the affordability problem here is structural. It does not respond quickly to modest improvements in the job numbers. AfriForum's submission argues that in a community with that level of economic distress, non-payment is not primarily a matter of willingness. It is a matter of incapacity. Disconnecting a household with no income does not produce payment. It produces a disconnected household. There is also a feedback loop that the submission identifies. When households are aggressively disconnected in high unemployment areas, a portion of them reconnect illegally and bypass the meter. When that happens, the municipality still pays Eskom for the bulk electricity entering those areas, but it can no longer bill anyone for it. The consumption moves from the revenue column to the distribution loss column. Mayor Fikile Matlope will tell you these are technical losses. And technically, that is correct. What he will not always tell you is that aggressive disconnections in a community that cannot afford to pay are one of the things that create them. The budget already identifies electricity distribution losses as a challenge. AfriForum's submission argues that the disconnection strategy, as structured, is likely to make the problem worse, while the 200 million rand that it is supposed to generate may never arrive. AfriForum also flags the tariff structure. The lowest consumption block, that's households using between 1 and 50 kilowatt hours per month, faces a 12% electricity tariff increase. High consumption blocks face only approximately 4.1%. The submission flags this as a design that hits the poorest residents the hardest, and in a community already struggling to pay, that increases the risk of further payment collapse rather than improved collection. Step back from the revenue side and look at what is happening to the physical infrastructure. National Treasury recommends that municipalities spend approximately 8% of their operational budget on repairs and maintenance. Matlosana's budget spends less than 4%. The municipality's assets are depreciating at 357.76 million rand per year. Capital expenditure, the money spent on replacing and upgrading infrastructure, is only 242.8 million rand. That means every year 114.96 million rand worth of infrastructure value is consumed and not replaced. The gap compounds year on year. AfriForum's submission calls this a maintenance death spiral. When preventative maintenance is deferred, assets fail earlier than they should. Emergency repairs cost between 3 and 5 times more than routine maintenance. Those emergency repair costs cannibalize the money that was supposed to go elsewhere. Eskom and Midvaal Water, to whom the municipality already owes a combined 5.7 billion rand, wait longer for payment. 5.7 billion rand. A broken meter cannot bill water. A blown transformer cannot bill electricity. The infrastructure that generates Matlosana's revenue is degrading faster than it is being replaced. The revenue base the budget is counting on is shrinking at the same time. AfriForum also raises a specific concern about the water savings target. The budget projects the bulk water expenditure will be reduced by 87.1 million rand. To achieve that, the municipality would need to stop millions of kiloliters of water from leaking or being stolen across the city. The physical intervention budgeted to produce that saving is the replacement of 300 domestic water meters. AfriForum's submission notes that in a municipality servicing tens of thousands of households, 300 meter replacements is less than 1% of the relevant infrastructure. That submission also notes that there is no formal water loss policy in place, which means the municipality has no legal or regulatory framework to enforce the interventions it claims will produce the saving. AfriForum argues that without the policy, there is no legal basis for the water loss plan referenced in the budget at all. The 87.1 million rand reduction is described in the submission as a mathematical fiction. Now here is where the procedural story sits alongside the financial one. Before AfriForum could compile any of this analysis, they encountered a separate problem. When the budget was advertised for public comment in April 2026, residents were directed to the municipal website to access the documents. The documents were not there, and I can confirm that because I was one of those who went looking for them. Members of the public approached the office of the Speaker and the Klerksdorp Library. The documents were not available there either. The Municipal Finance Management Act requires the municipal manager to make budget documents public immediately after they are tabled in council. The Municipal Systems Act requires them to be available on the municipality's website. Neither requirement was met. AfriForum submitted a formal objection to the municipal manager on 7 May 2026, demanding the entire budget process be restarted from scratch. Their argument is that meaningful public participation cannot happen if the public cannot access the documents it is being asked to comment on. Resetting the comment window without resetting the full process does not fix the constitutional problem. Because the updated debt collection and customer care policy was also not available, AfriForum's legal analysis of that policy was based on the prior year's version. They reserved the right to supplement their submission if the current version was eventually produced. They also raised a separate issue directly with the Office of the Speaker. In May 2025, the Council passed Resolution CC 87/2025, which required the Executive Mayor to respond in writing to public submissions made during the prior year's budget cycle. According to AfriForum's letter to the Speaker, that written response was never provided. The implementation report for April to June 2025 shows entirely blank columns against that resolution. The implementation report for July to September 2025 does not list it as outstanding at all. It has been removed from the active record without the obligation having been met. A definitive timeline for when the written responses will be issued, and an official explanation of why the resolution was dropped from the outstanding items list. AfriForum has now put all of this on record. The 28-page financial analysis, the formal objection to the municipal manager, the legal challenge to the debt collection policy, and the letter to the Speaker about the erased council resolution. All of it submitted in writing to the municipality on the 13th of May 2026. A municipality under provincial intervention, projecting a surplus built on a collection rate it has not achieved, counting interest income from residents who cannot pay their primary accounts, planning 87.1 million rand in water savings from 300 meter replacements and spending less than half the National Treasury benchmark on maintaining the infrastructure its revenue depends on. And when organised citizens try to engage with that budget through the process the law provides for exactly that purpose, the documents were not accessible. AfriForum has done what the public participation framework exists to enable. The submission is in. The record is on file. What the City of Matlosana does with it is the question that now sits with the municipality. Do share this video with someone that you think needs to hear this story, and if you have subscribed, thank you. It really does help the channel. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and I will catch you in the next one.